All right, good evening, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the Creativity 202 cohort introduction for our first iteration of this course in 2023. It is February 19th. Um, so just by way of background, um, this is the start of a 30-week course uh, or longer uh, because the guys that took it last year went through 30 weeks of this and have decided to continue on, um, some more active than others, but it turns out to be an open ended course. But the first 30 weeks of it are structured. Like we had a very good session this morning with our normal Sunday morning check in, and the recording of that was so good that I'm going to hang it in this course again as an overview because we had some real insights. Um, so let me welcome you all to the course and set some context for it. So uh, so I've been teaching adult learning and grad school level work for the Army and otherwise for 35 years, and for the Tharp Institute for Traders since about 1999. So that's about 23, 24 years. And in the last 4 or 5 years of my teaching has undergone a transformation with a new appreciation of what works in the classroom, what can work, and when the teacher was ready, the course came along, if I can say it that way. I had a really fortunate experience to meet Professor Angus Fletcher from Ohio State University, who is the world's leading authority on story science, the science behind storytelling, at Project Narrative at Ohio State. The story of how we met is pretty improbable. It would be as improbable as some of the scripts that he's written for Hollywood. In addition to being a research scientist, he also does Hollywood screenwriting and consulting out there. And the backstory on it is that I had a student 3 or 4 years ago who was destined for great things, but he was surrounded by average students in his classroom, in his group of 16. On the other side of the wall was the second group of 16 that I taught, and that was filled with 4 really advanced students who were going to go on to take the second year of advanced studies in military science. So I almost felt sorry for this guy that was all by himself. So I spent a little extra time teaching and mentoring him, and that really encouraged him to become interested in grad school. He went to that advanced course, and I stayed in contact with him and helped him on his research. And then he ended up taking a master's in business from University of Chicago. And that's about the time COVID hit about 3 years ago. And one of the courses he was taking was in entrepreneurship with Professor Greg Bunch at the Booth School of Entrepreneurial Business there. And because of COVID, everybody was working from home, and to just try to maintain our connections, my student Tom and I and Professor Bunch just got together, started doing Zoom calls on a weekly basis, and pulling in interesting people and talking about strategy and projects and things like that. Well, Greg understood that I was interested in storytelling because my doctoral mentor, David Boji, invented the field of organizational storytelling about 40 years ago, and it was a big part of my own dissertation research. So I said, "Yeah, I'm interested in stories." He says, "Well, I just met this guy Angus Fletcher from Ohio State, and you two ought to talk." So Angus and I met, and long story short, we're like twin sons of different mothers in some ways. And his story science is kind of a Western biological approach to storytelling, whereas I had grown up in the interpretive school of storytelling from Professor Boji, and the synchronicity of those two became very interesting, and you're going to see that as the foundation of this course, that we're going to incorporate storytelling in the style of Angus Fletcher, which is about individuals going through experiential learning exercises to tap into the natural creativity that is latent in our brain to build up our own capacity to be creative. And then the second part of it is when we do our weekly check ins and we talk about the work that we had done individually each week, we're going to engage in a true storytelling circle in which we use the principles of true storytelling to share our experiences without judging, critique, advice, processing, recommendations, or anything. We're just going to learn to sit together in the truth and exchange our gifts of true stories and see what happens. And it becomes a form of low risk collaborative learning that allows us to gain tremendous insights from the work of others that are freely offered. When you combine those two elements, the improvement of individual creativity through your preparation work, and then the collaborative socialization and communication through an exchange of true stories, it turns out that the third body of knowledge, which is my material on how to trade and how to look at trading long term and short term, turns out to be very easy to learn, or easier, I should say. Nothing's ever easy. But it is the integration of these three chunks of knowledge and process that makes this course pretty amazing from a transformational point of view. We started the last version of this, or the first time we taught it, in June. And from June until now, we've probably added 120 hours of the recordings of our weekly collaborations when we do these check-ins, and they are spectacular. There's enough material in them, I honestly think, for a whole lifetime of development. The ideas that were surfaced were pretty amazing. Every student that was in that course got far more out of it than they even imagined they could get, including me. We've started 4 businesses as a result of some of the ideas that came to the surface and then some follow-up in our works in progress. Had 2 guys retire from their jobs just to trade full-time because they now could. And the insights continue to mount. It's really helped me get to a transition point in my own business and to learn to trust others more and to start developing my students into teachers themselves. It's really helped me in my soccer coaching, in the coaching and teaching that I do at the military college, and then in the grad programs where I teach doctors of education about leadership ethics and learning theory and some of that stuff. I have not yet found an area in my personal and professional life where the combination of creativity and true storytelling has not been profoundly powerful. And so I'm really excited about where this can go. So we got that to look forward to, which is nice. So what I thought I would do is just kind of introduce you to the course material, and before I do that, I see some of you that are in here are registered for the course, and if you are, if you wouldn't mind giving just a short introduction, it's a 1-minute check-in, kind of who you are, what motivated you to, to sign up, what you're looking to gain from the course. If you're here just because this is the nightly meeting and you're not in the course yet, I want to encourage you to think about doing it. There's still time to do this. But if you're not going to do that yet, you can still introduce who you are. But take about a minute. And so, Art, I know you're in the course. So why don't we let me pass the baton to you, if you don't mind. Just a quick minute of intro, and then Pascal, over.
Sure. Evening, everybody. My name's Art, and let's see. I heard about. I've taken a few workshops or seminars through the Van Tharp Institute, and the last one that I took was the Crisis to Success and Happiness.
Yeah.
And that was around this time, roughly last year, that I took that. And I believe the Creativity 101 course was something that Ken had a couple of presentations during that workshop. It was a multi-month workshop anyway. So that kind of got me interested in the idea of creativity. I'd say from a personal basis, my interest is one where I feel it's something I wanted to revisit. I'm an engineer by training and profession, and I've kind of felt like I've learned all I needed to kind of do to do my job, if you will. And um, this course interests me because I just kind of want to rediscover my creativity, if you will, and find other things to interest me as I retire in the next 1 or 2 years.
Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of what's brought me here. That, and also the other thing that intrigues me is hopefully gaining a little bit more structure, just kind of around my life and around my learning now.
Yep.
Since I'm starting to, I guess, hit the second chapter of my life and looking to maybe apply those new skills and talents to learn things. So that's kind of what's got me here, and a strong interest in trading. So
Well, I think you're in the right spot.
great, thank you.
You'll see a lot of models and processes, and there is a very strong um, manufacturing, industrial engineering approach to trading on my part. You'll see that reflected in the way I design systems and talk about them and manage them. It'll be like old home week on the shop floor in some ways. A lot of statistical process control in your near future.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Pascal, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. I came to this course from being in the Ventarp Super Trader program and being a slow learner, but a huge fan of Dr. Long's work for over a couple of years. I guess kind of being on the nightly podcast a number of times and seeing all of the great stuff that was coming out of creativity course, kicking myself for not joining the first time around. So given that there was an opportunity to join, I didn't want to miss it. So that's why I'm here.
Well, welcome aboard. I see Ed Jackson, and glad to have you back. Sometimes life intrudes in all our plans, and good to see you smiling and looking healthy.
Good evening, Sensei. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I got kicked it quite a few times. It just took me out. But I'm definitely glad to be back. I learned so much being a part of the first part. I'm pretty sure I will definitely excel with Ken's teachings, and it's just been. I got a lot out of it, even from that, to the point that I actually wanted to come back, and like, wow, I really missed this. And then Bill, his brother Bill, is my partner, so my accountability partner. So we were both talking about a couple of different things. I said, no, I got to finish this class. I have to finish this. So looking forward to being back. Looking forward to the weekly check-ins, because it helped. It helped a lot going through life, and I got more out of life than just in trading. This was more of a help for me with my life and things that I've been going through, and learn more about that as we go on. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, always good to see you.
Yep. Always
the eagle of freedom in the background.
Yes, Roger.
Let it rage.
Let it rage.
John V, are you here for creativity or just enjoying the ride?
I don't think I'm ready for that. Thanks. I'm just listening. Maybe I learned something new.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, we're glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
Alex, how about you?
I'm just tuned in to listen in.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm a foundation class student, and I'm just tune in to listen.
Yeah, good. Let me kind of set the stage for our learning ecosystem. I have a bunch of other courses that are going on. I want you to kind of feel what creativity is. Like, I'm interested in the topic anyway because I coach little kids, and I want to teach them to tap into and trust their creativity and to support the creativity in others at the earliest possible ages. I'm trying to shift the culture of the Army into a deeper appreciation of creativity and why we need it and how to fit it into a professional frame of mind. And so creativity for its own sake is something that I'm interested in. But at the same time, members of a profession, whether it's the Army or traders, there's a real powerful motivation to get on with it and learn things that are immediately of use in the field, that make survival differences, and that there's sort of the tension of learning useful things now. So I'm mindful of all those things. So when I teach trading technique, I really have three categories. I have the long-term position trading, or the core trading. I have a course on that with the Tharp Institute. That's still pretty good. That's like monthly portfolio rebalancing according to some rules about relative strength and whatnot, and it's kind of an asset allocation, be in tune with the market and that sort of thing. And then I teach swing trading, where you're thinking about holding positions 2 to 10 days, sometimes a little longer, sometimes shorter, but where you're taking advantage of moments of abnormal distortion in prices, that there's some weird opportunity that has occurred where price is temporarily out of imbalance with among different populations, and there's some urge for immediate action to get it back in alignment. So swing trades tend to be, for me, these kind of short burst opportunity trades that happen at certain reliable frequencies in market conditions. So we look for anomalies, and then make trading frames that allow us to participate in the larger than normal move. So that tends to be 2 to 10 days. And then I teach day trading, where we're taking no overnight risk, where we're in the position for less than 1 day. And then these tend to be very statistical opportunities and patterns that require immediate action, battle drill, robust, reliable, lots of opportunities, capturing moves, removing your risk quickly, being ruthless about lots of opportunities, and learning how to manufacture returns without any effort in trying to understand why it's working, but just having sorted that out ahead of time. We walk into there without thinking, but well prepared, and so we're intraday trading. Now, it turned out that there is a strong connection between core and swing trading. That many times that the positions that we were holding in core trading, it was like a monthly position, and it had very strong relative strength over the last 3 and 6 months, and it was still going well. And sometimes those positions would also have swing trade opportunities on them, and that was always a good thing to do. That if you already had a reason to own it and had a reason to have a directional bias that it was going to outperform, then you saw a chance to have a swing trade. We called that turbo, where you could add a little turbocharged swing trade to a core holding and then take advantage of the opportunity, and that would be very efficient cognitively, because you already had an emotional connection to the position that you were in. You'd already understood the risk reward, and you knew something about it, and so it was easy to adopt a swing trade on that one. And then conversely, sometimes we would tap into swing trades, and they would last 2 to 10 days, but then it wouldn't stop. It would just keep going. So you might have had something like 5 days down and then it stabilized. We put a trade frame on it and we think it's going to get back to the 10-day high, and there's 2 or 3 to 1 reward to risk ratio. So that's a justified trade. And then if the 1-hour stop were hit and it started to fail, sometimes there's a reason to go short that. So you have this critical state here that gives you a favorable reward to risk ratio in both directions, and so that becomes a high payoff moment. Well, sometimes that thing would work and get to the 10-day high and never stop, and it would just keep grinding up and up and up and up. And so we learned that sometimes swing trades could grow up to be long-term position trades if we just measured our risk at each point and never took excessive risk but allowed the winners to keep running. So we learned how to do hybrid trading, which was a feature of blending these 2 of those different time frames. Well, it also turned out that it worked the other way on the shorter term, that swing trades, like on this one, if I had 5 days down and it stabilizes in a small doji, well, now I want to be able to go long if it breaks out of the doji, because that's the first sign that it might be returning back to the previous target. And by the same token, it might, if it breaks down below that doji's low, now there's some evidence that whatever caused it to fail the first 5 days, there might be more of that coming. So that turns out to be a high payoff trade frame. We call that the yellow zone. And we like to find those when there's good reward to risk in both directions. Well, it turns out that if you expand that yellow zone and look at it on an intraday basis, that was sort of like the daily range, and it opened here, and this was yesterday's low, so that's going to be our signal to go short. If it goes below yesterday's low, now we have a piece of price that gives evidence that there's more selling coming. And as long as it stays in this yellow zone inside this box, I don't have any new information available from yesterday. It's just within yesterday's range. But if it breaks below yesterday's low, I now have new information that the short side is stronger, and so I may want to go short. By the same token, if this thing reverses after that 5-day down and starts to move up, as soon as it breaks above yesterday's high, I have new information that in fact there's some buying pressure coming in that was not there yesterday because it's taking it higher than it could get yesterday. So there's a new interest in buying. Well, what that means, though, is that inside the yellow zone, I don't have any new information yet until one of those 2 things happens. But it may be that the distance between yesterday's high and low, if I have a small enough risk box, I might be able to frame a trade that gives me 2 or 3 to 1 just to the mechanical entry. A typical way that might happen is that it opens here and then it might sell off and it holds support at yesterday's low, right where you're not allowed to be surprised if it held support there, because that's what it did yesterday. And then it reverses intraday and starts moving up towards the mechanical entry. Well, if I have understood the statistics of daily intraday price performance well enough, I might be able to draw a risk box that is tight enough that if price moves off the low and takes out that price box, I could have a favorable intraday trade en route to the decisive point where it might be breaking out of yesterday's range. That's the price where I'm justified in starting a swing position according to the 5-day down pattern. The 5-day down pattern says that in a bull market, if you get 5 days down, but then it opens inside yesterday's range and makes a new high, takes out yesterday's high, there's reasons to believe that's a good trade, and you can start that off as a swing trade. So when you combine the information that's available from swing trade patterns and you have an understanding of how your target behaves on day trades, I might be able to, on, let's call it a 25-cent risk. Let's say if I'm going to risk $100 per trade as a standard unit of dollar risk, and my initial risk in this trade is 25 cents, I can actually have 400 shares. All right, because for each 25 cents I can buy a share. So if I want to risk $100, I could buy 400 shares. Then if it actually goes against me and I take a 1-hour loss, my loss is $100. Everybody see that? Check or hold? Well, if I've got $400 and against all odds this thing actually works, and I get like let's call it a 3-hour win intraday, I've now made $300 on that trade, and it's hitting the price at which I'm justified in starting a swing position. Now on the swing position, I can't have the same overnight risk that I can manage on the intraday risk, as I have to be concerned about the size of the daily range plus the gap. And so the amount of standard protection that I need to hold a trade overnight is going to be much larger than 25 cents. Maybe it's $2. Maybe it's $2 is my overnight risk. So if I'm going to risk the same $100 and then have a $2 overnight risk, that means I can afford 50 shares. Something that I can do now with hybrid trading, where I'm combining the swing and the day trade, is that I might start the trade off intraday with the 400 shares, and then it gets to my mechanical entry, and then I commit to making a swing trade. So I make my little swing trade entry here, and I'm good to go. Now all I have to do before the close of the day is offload 350 shares. I have to drop 350 shares out of my 400 so that I can just keep the 50 that are justified by the swing trade. But it turns out, because I made 3R on that intraday, that the overnight risk was funded not from my core capital, but from markets money. So it turns out that the swing trade patterns give us a reason to be directionally biased and to be ready to see powerful directional moves as more likely. And then those become very good targets for us to use our standard intraday patterns, because we have a reason to believe in the power of the move that is latent inside the swing trade. So that's what we mean by hybrid trading. In hybrid trading, then, I'm taking a look at core, swing, and day trading, each of which can be done separately according to their own discipline and systems. But now I can start sharing information in between these two different time frames and get synergy. And that's what we mean by hybrid trading. And we did a lot of that during COVID, and we have a course on that. Now if I take a look at that, all of those technical trading courses, core, swing, day, and hybrid, there are certain habits of mind and cognitive skills and patterns and indicators that are common to all of those. And there's a certain language that we have developed to recognize that. So I took all of like the boot camp type basic training that would give you the language and the patterns that are common to all of these. And so we think of the foundations course as the one that supports all of these technical trading courses. And now when I start thinking about creativity, I'm going to abstract that one level even further. And now, because what we're doing in creativity is we are building up the cognitive and emotional skills of creativity that actually give us the energy and the insights and the novelty that supports any type of trading that you do, because it's foundational. It also has some payoffs, as Ed was talking about, in other dimensions of our life. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to be looking at our evolutionary brain here. This is the brain that we've inherited from the plains of Africa that gave us an evolutionary advantage. That our ability to envision different futures, to communicate in stories between members of our tribe, to have bonding between members of a tribe for mutual support, that gave us an evolutionary advantage in problem solving, which we needed because we were the slowest, smallest, weakest animal around. And without that evolutionary brain, we don't win. So we did win. We're at the top of the food chain. So that evolutionary brain that you have is wired to be a creative problem-solving machine. You don't have to do anything to be creative, except give off the shackles of modern civilization and education, which has taught us to suppress that creativity in order to comply with social order. You can actually go back and take a look at the history of American public education around the late 1800s and early 1900s and see that we adopted the Prussian model, which was designed to turn peasants into industrial laborers in the city factories in Europe. And what they needed was education that would enforce compliance, obedience, rote memory. And what that really did was put a stifling on creativity. Now, a lot of that happened anyway, even before the Industrial Revolution, but the Industrial Revolution really made that big. So what the Fletcher treatment does is essentially give you experiential learning exercises, short stories with interesting characters and themes, and it then asks you to imagine a different world or a different character or a different point of view in the form of a story. And what happens is your brain responds to that when you do the experiential learning exercises and you engage in the reflective learning in your journal. What you're doing is you are exercising the circuits in your brain that are predisposed to be creative. So this is like going into the gym and getting stronger and getting more cardio because you're doing exercises that strengthen you. Then when you take on particular cognitive tasks like core, swing, or day trading or hybrid trading or learning the foundations, what you're doing is you're bringing an energized, creative brain to it. So this course is really designed to strengthen those general support muscles that are going to improve your creativity and problem solving in every dimension of your life. It just so happens that what we're going to do in every lesson is three things. First, we're going to take a look at a Fletcher exercise in creativity, and because the book that he wrote for us in the Army was designed for Army leaders, he's got 30 different little vignettes about famous military leaders in history and about a half a page of a short story. And then he has one or two little exercises where you write about and what you thought about that story. He asks you to imagine a different time and place. And then these little 30 lessons are designed to be progressive and iterative, and it starts adding towards deeper and stronger learnings about creativity and muscles and all that stuff. So the Fletcher treatment is really about the creativity itself. The second thing you're going to get is from me. For each one of these lessons, I wrote a trader's exercise that was related to the theme of the Fletcher story. So you're going to actually get a chance to think about trading in different ways, experiential learning, a chance to journal about it. And now you're going to get exposed to another set of learning experiences, this time dealing with trading, not just military. And then the third part of this is you're going to get a chance to come in and tell stories about the work that you did that week that was powerful and insightful and surprising. And we're going to be in a true storytelling circle. And so when that happens, we're all kind of gathered around the fire, and we've come to that fire with our own personal story. And in that sacred circle, what we're going to do is simply offer our insights about what we did that week, about something that was triggered in us by either the Fletcher exercise or my exercise, or something that happened to you that one of those two things triggered. There may have been something else that went on that these things sponsored, if I can say it that way. So whatever the biggest insight that you had, you bring that to our story circle. And when we're in that story circle, we operate in the following way. We start from a position of safety, which is that this is a place where you can tell as much of your truth as you feel you can, without retribution, judgment, critique, criticism, or anything. This is a place where we are here simply to listen deeply to the stories that you tell, and we're not going to try to judge you. We're really there to witness your story and to receive the gift of your true story. On the basis of that safety, when you see that that's how we are, it starts building bonds of trust between us in that circle. And then with that trust, we are able to tell more and more about our truths, and then those truths lead inevitably to opportunities for more work and good insights. So this little process of safety, trust, truth, and opportunity is a natural consequence of the true storytelling circle. And I'm going to upload this morning's sample. You'll be able to see that. And like I said, we got over 100 hours of that stuff. You'll get to experience that. That turns out to be the really powerful transformative experience. So what we end up having here is a little manufacturing process of knowledge, the ideal learning culture. And that is that we do individual work ourselves at our own pace to build up our own individual creativity, that we apply it to some trading lessons, which is material that we're hoping to learn about, and we use that creativity to gain different insights and perspectives on trading, and then we bring that to a true story circle, and it turns out that when you start trying to describe your experience to others, it opens up pathways of learning for you and your brain that are only available when you try to tell stories. And this is connected to some learning theory that I want to share, called the four ways of knowing. And I want to share this little picture with you too. So we call this little guy the walking man, and it turns out that we identify 5 different locations of knowledge. That inside our head is what we would call presentational knowledge, which is sort of that rational, fact-based, theory-based understanding of the world. Then there is the knowledge of the heart, which is kind of emotional and connected to values and principles and purpose and who we are as people. Then there is the knowledge from the gut. Oh, I just lost my pen there. There we go. And the gut is the source of almost like the emotional lizard brain, or risk and fear. This is the thing that keeps us alive. So like the gut is concerned about, in our immediate space, where is the danger? And it's always watching for threats. And so while our head is thinking about deep thoughts and looking deeply, and our heart is feeling all around us for what's good, the gut is really that part of us that is concerned with risk management. And as traders, you may have experienced moments where you had a trading plan in your head that you thought would help you achieve the vision end state of your heart, but something in your gut wouldn't let you trade it at the appropriate level of risk, and so you found yourself making emotional judgments that were against the rules, but which were driven by risk management or risk tolerance. That's what we mean by the knowledge of the gut, which is the knowledge that we gain from experiencing a world of risks and safety and some of those considerations. And that's a valid, important set of knowledge that we've inherited and that we process, and we've got to engage with it and account for it and use it to our advantage as traders. Now, the knowledge of the hands is the knowledge of how to do things. It's knowledge in action. Knowledge in action. How to actually go into the wood shop and use the tools and make something. And then the knowledge of the feet is the idea that the journey that we're on is a long distance one, and there are things that you have to learn about how to endure that long distance. And when you get enough iterations with your hands, you start gaining unconscious knowledge, and the knowledge of the feet is learning how to persist in that long journey of resilience, good times, bad times, how to grind. Well, we account for all of those ways of knowing and locations of knowing and types of knowledge in this course. And this is connected to the four ways of knowing, which the first one is propositional knowledge, and that's, again, knowledge of theory that resides in your head. And then there's experiential knowledge, which is the knowledge of how to do things with your hands, the practical knowledge. There is a practical knowledge, almost unconscious knowledge, which is the knowledge of the feet, which is what you learn without even knowing that you're doing it. It turns out that when you talk to experts and you try to you look at their depth of knowledge, they're only conscious of about 30% of the things that make them experts, that about 70% of their knowledge is in their subconscious, or it's in intuitions or in heuristics. And when you are trying to map an expert's knowledge to teach other people, you actually have to have a skilled knowledge navigator that can go down into that unconscious and bring up those things that that really matter to them. And there's a whole art and science of doing that. So practical knowledge is the knowledge of the feet and maybe even of the hands that is kind of unconscious. The final form of knowledge is what we would call presentational. And presentational knowledge is the knowledge that only comes about when you try to tell somebody about what you know. And it turns out that this is connected to the problem of being an expert in your own knowledge, that you're aware of about 30% of the things that you are doing. The other 70% are kind of unconscious expertise. And then when you try to tell somebody what it is that you do and you give it to them in words, it's from your point of view. And then they listen to that, and then they try to recreate what it is that you do. And then when you're trying to help them learn by telling, it turns out that it's not 100% right away. So you end up finding new words and new ways and new analogies to help them see what it is that you see. And when you do that, it gives you a deeper understanding of the knowledge that you possess, and you only get to access that when you try to actually tell people about it. So the power of the true storytelling circles that we'll be in is that it activates the presentational knowledge. And this is where the idea of knowledge by storytelling really comes in. And that's what both Fletcher and David Boji discovered, was that when we start telling what it is that we know in the form of human stories from our lives, that really resonates strongly with other people, and they can learn faster and better, and we learn faster and better when we try to put our knowledge into story form, and it stays with us and it's easier to communicate. So that's sort of the theoretical basis for the course as it is designed. It incorporates all of these things, but the true storytelling circles, where we simply come in and talk about what we learned that week and share that out, becomes an important way of unpacking our own knowledge and bringing that to the surface. And when you do that, you're giving each other a gift of the things that you learned about, and that allows us all to benefit from the collaboration in this journey. So being a trader is hard enough. Part of what makes it hard is it can lead to a sense of isolation, or every man for himself, or an individual enterprise. And so when we can bring people together in a circle of trust and talk about the idea that's in the middle and get 6 or 7 different perspectives on it, we all benefit from the true stories that we're all offering. And then when the story circle is done, then each of us can go on our different way to our work in progress and go on to the next journey, and then all of us come back together in the next circle once again. And so this divergent thinking and convergent thinking gets anchored in the weekly session. So that's going to be the phenomenon that you'll end up seeing as we go through this course. So I wanted to say that. This little image just summarizes what I tried to say with my little scribbles, is that in the area of maximum sustainable rate of learning, that's what I have been engaged with almost for 40 years as a teacher of various subjects in a lot of different areas. How fast can I keep learning each day and every day? And what I've discovered, and this is, I'm going to be using this diagram, by the way, in a couple academic conferences. I'm presenting some papers as a guest speaker at the Association of Creativity Research out at University of Southern Oregon, and for the Association of Business Simulation and Experiential Learning, that to me, the maximum sustainable rate of learning comes from trying to get a piece of technical material. Now, we want that to be organized. We want to be able as professionals to identify standard work and do routine things and be reliable with battle-tested, industrial-grade knowledge. But to learn that quickly, we want to combine the individual improvements to creativity that comes from the Fletcher treatment and benefit from the community socialization and storytelling of true storytelling. And so when you get those 3 things together, individual creativity, socialized group learning and support, plus well-organized technical material, you end up getting the maximum sustainable rate of learning. And I've seen that across my entire teaching career in the last 10 years as I've been specializing in this. So I just want to say that that's what you can look forward to. All right. We're into this almost an hour, and now I'm prepared to be able to say what I wanted to say, which was, let's just take a look at the coursework and get you set up for week 1. So when you log into the creativity course, you're going to see a lot of stuff in the introduction, okay? This is where the material from Fletcher's book begins. So Angus wrote a beautiful book called Wonderworks, which is a bestseller. That it's about 350 pages that talks about the 25 greatest literary inventions of human culture through literature and what those technologies do for us. And I said that, that is a beautiful piece of work that nobody's going to read in the Army because it's too much. And I said what we needed was a field guide for Army leaders. And it needs to be about 100 pages in a half-sized book with 30 chapters, with short stories, and a couple exercises, that we could do bite-sized lessons. Each chapter should be standalone but build on each other, and then we could just drop in and do it in a half an hour and go on. So he agreed, and over the weekend he wrote the Field Guide to Creativity for Army Leaders, and we put it on Amazon, and it's already a bestseller, and the leading book in leadership education development in that sector of Amazon. And we've given away about 10,000 copies of that across the Army to general officers, and it's getting into Army University. So that field guide is the basis for the 30 lessons that I'm about to review here, or that we'll see in the course. And then each one of those 30 chapters, again, that's something where I've also added a trader's lesson that goes hand in hand. Now, when we look at each lesson, what we're going to see is this, that each lesson has a Fletcher exercise, a Fletcher story and exercise. It has a trader's exercise and a reflection journal. And then you're going to see 1 or 2 recordings from the last iteration, and these tend to be 1 to 2 hours of the True Story Circle coaching sessions that our previous 2 cohorts did. So all those guys got together and they did the Fletcher exercise themselves. They did my exercise. They thought about it. They brought a true story to the circle. We exchanged those stories in the True Story Circle, and then we talked about it. And we recorded each of those sessions, and now those have become the lesson companions. You can actually see the work that these guys did over the last nine months. And so you get a chance to do the Fletcher exercise, do my exercise, listen to their stories, and then come up with your own true story and your aha moments. And so if you do all of that work, that could take you 3 to 4 hours each week, which you can then budget over the course of the week. Best practice would be something like do the Fletcher exercise on Tuesday and Wednesday, do mine on Thursday and Friday, listen to the videos when you wish, take a walk, think about it, and then come together with what your true story is. And then we're going to have probably 3 different sessions. We're going to continue the Sunday morning check-in at 10 a.m. Central. And that's really good for the guys in Europe. And we'll do a Monday at 7 p.m. Central, and a Tuesday, I think, at 7 p.m. Central. So just to accommodate different time schedules. As long as you make one of those and tell your story, you're going to be in great shape. And if you miss a week, that's all right. And you might make a plan to come Sundays, and then some week you got to come Monday and another time. As long as you make an effort to get into one of those, you're going to get the maximum value out of the course, because we'll just combine all of those presentations and make them all available. So you're going to get a chance to hear people talking about their stories. And if for some reason you can't make any one of those, but you want to tell your story and send me the video, I'll get it added to there, so that it is a very flexible delivery. But I really want to say that it's important that you come to those circles and offer what it is that you have. No story too small. It's really crucial that you realize that the values of true storytelling are that we don't judge each other. We share our stories out of a sense of gratitude, and we're there really just to listen and witness. And there's plenty of other places in the world where you can get judged and criticized and critiqued and abused. It ain't going to happen in the True Story Circle. That's a little oasis where we can just be who we are, tell the truth, and let that be enough. So, what I would like you to do in this first week, is sort of in conclusion, is this is where the Fletcher the Fletcher material is this is like the opening parts of his book. The preface, mission statement, definitions, intro, and a simple summary. That's about 2 pages. Some of these other things are things that I've added. Like we discovered from one of our sessions the essential idea. I'll just let you listen to that short video. This little exercise, and when is good enough good enough? This Summary of Mastery by George Leonard is a great short essay about what it means to be a master of craft knowledge. The 70-point professional assessment tool is something I'd like you to just download and keep in your kit bag, because about 2/3 of the way through the course, we just did a creativity exercise to make a list of all the things that we think a trader needed to be able to do. And once we started making that list, it turned out to be about 70 different items. So we've turned that into a job book. So you should just use that as a self-assessment tool. The sample coaching session and an introduction to hybrid trading comes from one of our annual research weekends, and it talked about in greater detail that idea of hybrid trading that I just shared with you. Finally, Glossary version 4.0 is a great list of all our professional terms and patterns and concepts in an encyclopedia style form, or like a dictionary. And when we start talking about the trading exercises through the course, or if you're listening in on the weekly, nightly podcasts and you have specific questions about any of our systems, then the glossary is a great resource to start with, so that you can get up to speed on what it is that we're talking about. So all of those things from about here down are like support resource material. These things up top, I just want to say the introduction to the spirit of creativity and true storytelling was from this morning's True Story Circle, and it sounded so good in my ears that they said I should put it in the course. This 12-minute video here is a recording that I made for the U.S. Army Public Affairs Office that described the results of the research project Fletcher and I did at the Command and General Staff College, and which caused the Army to adopt the Fletcher treatment as part of our leadership development program across Army University. And when I say Army University, I'm talking about all Army schools. Army University has 7,000 faculty, and over 200,000 soldiers a year go through Army University. And Army University thinks that Fletcher treatment of creativity is so important that we're training all the faculty on how to deliver it to 200,000 soldiers a year. This is cutting-edge transformational power. We prove that in the research project that we did, and this 12-minute video is the Public Affairs Office video that they did with me in order to explain why it's powerful to Army generals. So you may find that to be inspirational or interesting. Okay. This one, the course concept is really just a restatement of what I just went through with what's in a lesson and all that, and then how the plan for 2023 was a discussion that I had with some of the graduates from the last cohort, where we talked about how those students could come in and sit in on some of our sessions and add some value and be good examples and role models and possibly accountability partners if it works out that way. I then want to, so that's what's in the introduction, and all of that is there for you to start grazing through this week as you get towards lesson number 1, that we are born to innovate. This little section 2, I thought was pretty interesting. So 3 of the students have completed the summary of their learning and their current works in progress from the last iteration of this course. Kyun Wen, Tom Hardison, and Chun Long Lee. I think we're all super traders at VTI. I know Chun Long, and Kyun are. and Tom is a longtime VTI guy. And each one of them talks about their learning journey over the last 9 months. And you should review that stuff just to get a sense of how inspirational this course can be and how useful and how surprisingly good. So I want to make all that stuff available to you. And then, if that's not enough, right, what we want to start off with next week is just getting into lesson 1, which is Born to Innovate. When you click on that, you'll get the Fletcher stuff and my stuff. Now, when you are looking for Fletcher's material and my material, it's in the numbered lessons, right? Section 1 of the book was Want It, Get It. Section 2 was this. So there's 6 lessons in the first section. So we're just going to work on lesson 1 for this first week. Then, if you want to listen to the check-ins, you go down to the weekly check-in sessions, and then you would call up those 2 videos. This top one was the Eurozone guys. That was the Sunday morning, and then we had a group of guys that did it Monday evenings too. So there's actually 2 sessions of True Storytelling Circles already, and that'll give you an idea of what that is like. And then for each one of those 30 lessons, there's 1 or 2 recordings, and you'll see it all numbered in a line. So when you're going through the weekly lessons, you should go to the lesson for that week, like lesson 1, get in there, read the materials, do the exercises, then go down and listen to the audios. So when you click in there, like we'll just take a quick look at Born to Innovate. This is kind of typical of the Fletcher treatment, and he talks about it's a short written 1-pager about our evolutionary brain and how bravery is a part of the biology. And then he gives you a short exercise about thinking about your family tree, somebody who did something new, and then make a comment about their life. And then a comment about some time in your childhood when you had courage. And list 3 things that a maverick would do in your job today. So these are short implementation exercises for the story that is told up here. That's the Fletcher portion. My portion is then, is I ask you to think about the phrase fight or flight syndrome, and then I'm going to ask you a series of questions to think about with respect to your trading, to start looking at the appearance of fear and anxiety and what it feels like and how long it lasts, and then a quick exercise to start thinking about how to process that. So that gives you the Fletcher exercise and my exercise for the week. And there's a written component that, to get the best value out of that, try it for a week and journal your results. I recommend you have a journal that's dedicated to just doing this work and these reflections, and you'll see progress week to week, and it'll help you build some momentum. So that's what the week 1 exercise and lessons look like. It's pretty quick to go through that. You could do that in an hour. And then when you go back to, if you wanted to go listen to the audio, you would go down. If I wanted to listen to the Euros, I would just click that link, hit the play button, and there you can see the gang getting together. And that one lasted an hour and 41 minutes. You could listen to it at 1.25 speed; it wouldn't hurt you. You can expand the video so you can see guys a little more clearly. That's the Euro gang. So in a nutshell, that's what that's how the course is set up. You'll see that there are 6 sections of his book, so the 30 chapters are organized into section 1, want it, get it. Section 2, unlocking creativity. Section 3, amplifying it. Section 4, putting those lessons into practice. And each one of those lessons is one of the weekly lessons. At the end of it, after lesson number 30, how to scale creativity, there's some short ones on myths, a couple extras. There's the weekly check-in sessions. And then just we added a section down here that this was a showcase. I was telling you about all the things that came out of the course. All of this stuff were like special sessions or follow-ups or systems or ideas. Like this one here, the Kata Challenge is the thing that Griff Cooper and Phil Wu turned into an entire standalone course that they're teaching for me now. And the sniper trade of the day, the sniper system started off as a thought experiment in this course, and then that has become an entire system and a workshop. And it's my go-to style now for intraday trading. After 35 years of day trading, I am a sniper trader, and that formation of it, or the formulation of it, comes from this course, and that's where it all began. So this area here about showcase is really to show you that this is not just about strengthening your creativity muscles. Don't be surprised when there's a lot of other practical artifacts that come right out of this and that can get put right into your own trading practice or life processes in a very powerful way. All right, so that's everything I wanted to say about the course. All of this other stuff, hey, look at, you have lifetime access to this course. And what that means is not only are you going to get these files, but in the future, as we add things to the showcase and we add sessions to the recordings, you're going to have access to all of that for life at no extra charge, just because of you taking on the challenge of doing this, this kind of indirect professional development. You're going to get a lot of practical stuff out of here, to be honest. But the fact that you're willing to take on the challenge of personal growth, I want to recognize that and let you know that there's no hurry and no worry, that you have lifetime unlimited access to this material. So that's everything that I wanted to say for tonight, and I want to give you a chance to ask any final questions before I cut you loose. Art, anything?
Yeah, I just had sorry, I was searching rapidly for my mute button.
Yeah.
No, it's a great presentation. Oh, it's amazing. I think I put that in the chat, and I could have put it a couple more times. But the one question I did have when I was listening to you talk about the storytelling circle that we do in the check-in. So it's okay to share, I mean, like just any, what am I trying to say? It can come from any area of life, and it's okay to
when you start listening, I will tell you what happened, and Ed can confirm this. It starts off sort of like sharing insights about the specific learning exercise, and then after about 4 weeks, we were so comfortable and confident with each other that a lot of times what happened was that the lesson would trigger something, and then the second and third order effects, and you'd get this amazing insight out of nowhere, and that was the thing that you wanted to talk about. And so here is the promise to you. The promise of safety and trust is this: that if there's that you don't have to say anything that you don't want to say, and we're not going to judge you if you say or don't say what. Like, I don't know what's in your heart, and you didn't tell me, so now I know somehow you're no. It's just the promise is you put it on the table to talk about it, and we respect the courage that it takes to do that. But there's no obligation to tell a story or to say anything in particular. It's whatever you want to put on the table and are ready. based on trust and truth and safety and all that. Now, if there's ever something you want to say, and you say, I want to say this to the guys in the group that I trust, but this is not for further distribution, then I'll turn off the recording and we will keep that under strict confidence.
Okay.
And then after that's done, I'll turn it back on. And if you say something in the story circle and it felt, whatever, at the time it felt right, but then later you say, you know what, I just, could you take that out? I'll just go and delete it out of there and reprocess the video. Now, I will tell you that over the course of 60 check-in sessions and the 120 hours of doing that, that happened exactly once. And it was a guy was talking about a particular trading system that he was using, and it revealed something about his trading size and whatever that he didn't want out there in the world. And so could you just kind of so I went in and it was like to delete one sentence and then reprocess it and then got it done. So that's sort of the whole idea. It's this is how I pitch true storytelling to Army generals and to CEOs, by the way. I simply ask, think of all the meetings that you ever go to. How much time in that meeting do you spend judging the other people in there, trying to figure out, now how is this guy lying to me? How am I going to get screwed in this? What's his angle? What's his real agenda? If you're me, about 90% of the time outside of true story circles or our trading community, about 90% of the time I'm looking at that kind of agenda. What is the hidden agenda and what's going on? What's really going on? And then I got about 10% of my energy left. Now there's I guess this guy isn't a rat bastard. I guess he really is genuine. And now I don't have any energy left to do anything with it, And so I tell them, what would you give to be able to go into all of your meetings with 100% confidence that everybody was there in order to tell the best truth of their personal experience that they could, that was directed towards so that the people may thrive, to our mutual benefit and payoff. If you could start every meeting with that belief and have trust in what those other people were going to say, how much would that be worth to you? And it turns out that the socialization of true storytelling circles creates that sense of community within which whatever the creative insight that you came up with is free to be told and shared in that community. And that's really it adds to the power of the Fletcher creativity, because Fletcher's work was about improving the creativity of the individual by going through this exercise. Then you become more creative, and then when you do it in small groups, the whole little group gets more creative because they're monkeying around with the stories. But what we discovered was that there is a secondary payoff when you do the true storytelling, that you start building tribal affiliations and you start becoming a team of mutual support and not just a collection of individuals who are trying to learn skills. You end up building the bonds of trust, and that turns out to be really important for soldiers, because in combat, I can tell you, it's your trust of the guy on the left and right is what makes you do things. So when you the True Story Circle allows you to grow in trust at your pace. It's always your decision on how much, and that's why we phrase the standards of conduct in there as agreements. And let me just tell you a short story about that. So I went through the True Storytelling Foundations course with my mentor, David Boji. A bunch of us did that. It was a 7 or 8 week course. At the end of it, we had bonded so much that we wanted to maintain the connection. So at the start of COVID, we started meeting every week. And the group of storytellers that got together was unbelievable. I got Mike Three Bears, who is a Lakota Sioux petroleum engineer retired, who's now a medicine man, who is homeless in the sense that he lives out of his car, and he drives around to the reservations, house sitting for friends, and doing spirit guide work in each of those little locations. And he just drives around with his dog and does that. And he's sort of become this little wandering minstrel prophet medicine man. He's freaking amazing. And you'll hear some of that testimony in the course. So he's there, and I got guys that are hippies from Vietnam era, and so there's all these people from all over the world and just kind of come together. And so I was running the circles because I was hosting the sessions and kind of being the moderator, if you will, or the organizer. And we put together a list of the rules. We said these are the rules for our version of this true storytelling circle. And after about 2 months, we kind of got together and said, you know what, the rules doesn't feel right, because a rule means that there's some external authority that is going to compel us to act, and then if I don't act according to the rules, then what, we got to figure out how we're going to punish people and all that. So rules doesn't really capture that self-organizing, voluntary grouping of free agents that are committed to work together, right? And so somebody said, well, why don't we call them guidelines? And we thought about that for about 5 seconds. We said, no, guidelines doesn't capture the spirit of what we're trying to do, because a guideline is kind of a suggestion. We would like it if you could just tell your own story and not tell other people's stories. But if you do, well, then, you have the discretion to be able to, and we just got to sit there and take it because it was just a guideline. And we didn't like that, because the principle of true storytelling is that you only tell your own story. That's what you have the authority to speak of in the circle. When we hit the gongs and we get into the sacred story space, you tell your story. And no one is going to judge you, because who could? We're there really simply to witness your story and feel it, and we'll worry about what happens after when we get out of the circle. So what we ended up with was the word agreement. And so agreement turned out to be exactly the right word that described the relationship that we had with each other and to the purpose of that true story circle. So when we do that circle, we kind of hit a gong, and then we move into that space, and then we're on our best behavior with the talking stick, that when it's your turn to talk, you tell your story, and when you're done, you say aho, which is Lakota Sioux for as it should be, or like amen. And then we wait 10 seconds while we're hitting the gong, and that gives the story time to go out into the universe like a little baby deer, like Bambi. Gets its legs, and it just runs. And the idea is this. When you're engaged in deep listening, that's your job, is to be fully open to the words that are coming in, which is a trusting relationship, because I'm allowing that stuff in and I'm trying to fully absorb all that energy, and I'm being vulnerable in my listening. And that's different than when you go to a meeting and the other guy isn't listening, he's just waiting for his turn to talk. That's completely different. In the true story circle, you are there to tell your story when it's your turn, but then to deeply listen as best you can. And can you? So as a listener, I'm actually working on my ability to kind of be mindfully present and to turn off all of the what if and making notes. And so we don't do any chat. We're not taking notes, and there's no follow-up questions. It's you tell your story. Aho, we hit the gong, and then it moves around. When everybody's done, we go around the story circle one more time and ask you to think of the word that comes to mind that encapsulates what you're feeling, and that's going to be your focus word for the week ahead. So when you're doing the lessons and listening to the videos and walking and thinking, maybe peace was the word, or loyalty, or whatever it may be, I actually use that to kind of to reflect upon. So I say all that simply to say that when we get to those check-ins, 95% of the time you're going to be surprised by the story that you end up telling and the way that you tell it. Because when you're kind of committed to that total approach, the story just comes out of you, and it's like, wow, you're a witness to the story being spoken through you. The story is telling itself through you. Is what it's not unusual for that to happen, and so it becomes, it's like planned, but unpremeditated, if I can say it that way. You come in there thinking you were going to say something, and then you hear what the other guys are saying, and your story ends up responding to that somehow, and something just comes out. And so that's why it's absolutely crucial that we understand the agreement of protecting each other's privacy and intentions and safety, so that when you come in there with that spirit and somebody gives that story, that's an act of trust in both directions. But if it ever should come to be, hey, I'd like to not have that on the recording, either don't tell it that way, save it for another moment, or come back later and say, hey, I'd actually prefer not to have that told. And then I'll delete it from the video so that we respect that. But like I said, that happened one time on one sentence over 60 sessions. But it was like, that's what we do. It's okay, yeah, I understand that. He thought about it, says, I'd actually like to not put in there, so we cut that out. So that's what the True Story Circle is like. You'll see that phenomenon once you start looking at some of those videos of the recorded sessions. You could even see that in the one I did this morning. I ended up telling a story about the evolution of the course and some work that I had been doing this week that surprised me, and I had no intention of telling that story that way, and it just came out of me. I was like, well, that just happened. And that's one of the things that that becomes transformational about this place. After a while, you realize, it's like, why not? You just get addicted to the feeling of telling the truth and hearing yourself telling the truth, and then you end up hearing other people telling the truth, and that actually is a good skill, because you'll never again wonder about what the truth sounds like. You end up getting into meetings and guys start talking about stuff, and you say, well, that's lying. He said, that's not even true. That doesn't have the ring of truth. So there's a certain payoff to that commitment of truth-telling that comes out of this as an unintended consequence of the course. So the individual components of this are really good. Like, I could teach a technical workshop just on the lessons that I put in, and not even do the creativity, and not even do the true storytelling. The 30 lessons that I put in there, that's a $5,000 workshop. I've taught less than that for $5,000 on a weekend.
Wow.
And that's just one of the components of the stuff that's in there. The creativity stuff is, when Fletcher teaches that to Fortune 50 companies, they pay $25,000 a week to sit in the classroom to listen to those. That's what they pay, just for his creativity. And then the true storytelling stuff is work that David Boji does in the world that is also its own. And when you bring all those three things together, it's just astonishing what can happen. So that's what I wanted to. That was the long way around to answer your question, I guess, about
No, thank you for all that.
about
That's
the
amazing.
storytelling. That's it's odd, for sort of like Western engineer guys to think in that way. But if you start thinking about what it's like around the product table or the ops meeting, where you got marketing and sales and HR and the union and production guys and the R&D guys, and everybody's in there with their own agendas and competing interests and all that. That is not a place where truth is routinely told.
No.
But if they could figure out how to collaborate, the power that this can unleash is pretty extraordinary. But it's a real shift in culture and perspective, And it's why we teach it to our leaders in the Army, because they're in the position of having to be in a very strong hierarchical organization, but somehow get every brain into the fight. How do I encourage the younger guys to offer their good ideas or their best ideas? Even if it's not something that we're going to do, even if it turns out to be silly, if you encourage that young kid to offer an idea and he does, and then he gets smashed in public for being silly, well, that's the last time he'll ever make that mistake.
Yeah, he'll never do it again. I agree.
So it turns out that it's not enough just to have the innovative ideas. It's also having a culture and a socialization that respects the courage of being able to offer ideas and to be vulnerable with your wacky ideas for the good of the team, and somehow reward that. And that's why I use this when I use this with my youth soccer, my 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and middle grade kids and high school students, to learn how to become emotionally competent and emotionally mature with different ages and different kids, and how to build strong bonds at that age. And it works exactly the same way with them as it does with adults. It's fascinating to see. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pascal, did you have any questions or anything?
No, I don't. Thank you so much
for
this amazing introduction.
Yeah. Alex, I saw you come in and out a couple times. Alex or John or Eddie, do you got any? Ed can testify. Did anything I say, was that a lie?
No, sir. Nope. You were right on point. It was
That's what happens.
Yeah. Like I said, you guys are going to enjoy it. You really are. Welcome to the family. I call it the family. This is my family over family. You're going to enjoy it. Just put the time in and you will see the transformation. You probably within the first 1 or 2 lessons, as you start putting things going, you'll see different things because you're actually really focusing. So just to reiterate that Sensei does, he hit the nail right on the head.
Hey, let me also I know, Pascal, I think you're on Patreon, and I know that you get to this. Alex or Art, you may not be on Patreon, but there's a
I am, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a $25 a month intern or student subscriber level. I would strongly recommend you do that. I have to charge some money because Patreon won't let me just give guest accounts.
Yeah, I'm on Patreon, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think for Art also. I will tell you that the real workshop, I mean, when you're talking about going into the shop and making product, turning wood and using a lathe and all that, the nightly podcast, that's where it's happening, man. I mean, there's a sniper trade of the day. There is a swing trade review portfolio every night. It's me coaching guys. It's reviewing the daily reports. It's using all these terms on an operational basis. That's the daily operations meeting. I mean, I have an educational arm where we do the courses and all that stuff, but that's the operations view. That's the production central. And the Patreon page has 4 years of nightly podcasts archived, and all of the weekly and daily reports, and so many goodies in there that it's sickening. And my experience has been that in soccer, the ball is the best teacher, the game is the best teacher, and I'm a firm believer that you learn by doing. Start with a knife and learn how to whittle and don't cut your thumb off. Okay, now let's go to a plane, and now let's go to a lathe, a wood lathe, and then a metal lathe, and start building out the different tools, and learn from that in terms of craft knowledge by doing, and then bring that learning habit of mind into all the things that you're doing, so that you are simultaneously learning about it while also trying to do that thing. And then that's the way to connect your experience with the theory that you're learning. I am not a believer in stop everything you're doing for 2 years and then start trading later on. That's not my model. I'm not saying it can't work. That it doesn't work for me. I teach my soccer players how to play soccer with a ball in their foot, and they touch the ball 1,000 times a day with both feet. And at the end of a year, they can play some soccer. And that's the approach that I take in this craft work that we're doing. So that's everything I want to say about that. If there's John, did you have any questions, or Alex? Anything I can help you with?
No, I just wanted to say and concur. I truly treasure your night lessons. It's like, I would say free I would say free knowledge of a master, coming in, and trying to absorb as much as I can from it.
That's why it's there. It's sort of like I had a martial arts teacher out in California, and his dojo had this great big picture window at the front, and the mats on the floor. We'd go in and roll around all the time, and there was always a viewing gallery for the public or people watching. So we're doing what we do, and you can watch from outside. You can come in, sit down and watch. You can come and roll around with us if you want on beginner's night or whatever. But the learning is in the doing. So that's really kind of where the biggest payoff is. And then also, if you think about surgery, there's the surgeon doing the surgery, and then there's the students gathered around that first circle and then behind them is the other observation gallery. So we try to get the maximum value out of all of that stuff, and then just find your own natural level, and we'll figure it out. The community of practice is really committed to people succeeding in this, in a world that is designed to not make you successful. And we just are not going to stand for that. We're going to stand for something else, that we think we can do it, and we have some evidence that we can, and we want to just document that and help each other as we go. So that little picture over my shoulder is of a Sherpa. A Sherpa takes a picture of the guy that he's supporting on the climb on Everest, and so that's kind of how we think of it, as a base camp and a support of mountain climbers, and with the gear and whatever it takes to get up that mountain together. So.
Yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'll say, I just wanted to say about the creativity course. It sounds fantastic. I'm won't be able to do it this time because I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
With other stuff, with the work and the personal life.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But if I would love to come on the next iteration if it's available.
Yeah, it certainly is. I will probably offer like a home study course of this at half price to folks they just want to, kind of eat it at their own pace and not maybe come to the nightly sessions, just because there's so much material. I want to let people to make it available. But the course is going to be there forever, and it's only going to get better. And you can pick it up and get going whenever it's the time is right, and people know when it's best. When the timing is right. So, like for instance, I think what we do with the sniper system and the C202 challenge is a good way to get started. And this is kind of a nice way to start doing the deliberate march up the mountain. This should be thought of as a long-term engagement towards fitness. So anyway, whenever you guys are always welcome. And like I said, once you're in the course, you have lifetime access to it. So that's a pretty good deal, I think. So, John, was there anything you needed to talk about or wanted to say? And otherwise, I'm going to declare victory and go up and watch some TV with my baby. Go up and watch.
Right now it sounds very interesting, but I'm thinking about it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Take very good care. And we'll see you on down the road there, Art. And then I think for you, Art, my brother, Tuesday was going to work really good for my brother. And I think for Luke Crockford, now they've both been through, 95% of the course and wanted to keep going with the next iteration. But Tuesday was my brother was not going to be able to do Sundays and Mondays, but Tuesday he could. So what I may end up doing is just I think what we'll do is probably just say Tuesday's going to be a good night, and then I have like Luke, and maybe I can persuade Eddie to join on to do Tuesday nights with Bill, and that way when you have a nice little cohort that kind of works in that small group, that really works well, and it's interesting to see how the two different groups kind of develop their own identity. You'll see that develop over time too. So it'll certainly be. I will make the Tuesdays as well, but those guys will be there for sure. And at some point, I may allow them to, take the lead on hosting and commenting, because it's really. I'll never talk this much again in one of these little check-ins. I mean, I offer my 3 to 5 minute story, and hit the gongs, and it's the students really. So this is kind of the anomaly about how to get it started and whatnot, and you'll see that in the different sessions. So, all right, that's everything I got, and we will see you on down the road. So anyway, like Art, so if you're doing it too, the first check-in is not like tomorrow and Tuesday, but the following.
Right. A week from
Yeah.
this coming Tuesday. Yep.
Yeah, because that would be a big ask to go through all that crap and.
Yep. And I think I said in my email like that the problem I have with like next week, you could pick any day during that week, and it's gonna not work for me because I got my upcoming I got rehearsals all next week for my upcoming concert. So
yeah, no worries. Hey, and if you wanted to do just like a one-on-one for that, for that week or something, we can do that and record something and have a quick chat.
okay, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
so what is your instrument? What do you play?
My voice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
That's
I'm
cool.
just starting. I started
What's
out.
your genre?
Well, it's really whatever the chorale group I sing with. It'll just depend on what they decide the conductors wants to do. So this upcoming concert will be Mozart's Requiem.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
And then
classical. Okay, very nice.
Yeah, well, the last concert we did was a series of different pieces from African American composers. So
Nice.
and they came from a lot of like spiritual hymns and songs. So it really kind of varies.
So
I'm finding out. I've only been with them maybe like 6 months. So
are you a tenor or baritone?
Tenor, first tenor.
Nice. Well, and enjoy, have fun with it, and give it everything you got.
I will.
And we'll see you guys on down the road, and take good care.
All right, everybody have a
Sounds
good night.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Good.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Cheers.
Good night, Sensei.
Thank you.
Okay.